The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber slid open with a soft hiss. Jake Morrison walked through them, his black uniform crisp and clean, but his hands slightly shaking. Behind him came Dr. Lisa Park, carrying a heavy briefcase filled with documents about Earth and humanity. They were the only two humans in a room designed for beings much larger and stranger than themselves. The chamber was enormous. The ceiling stretched so high that Jake could barely see it. Rows of seats curved in a perfect circle around a central speaking platform. Each section was built for a different alien species. Some seats were filled with water for the aquatic, hydros. Others glowed with special lights for the energy-based Luxari. The air itself was thick with different breathing gases, carefully mixed so all species could survive. Jake and Lisa found their assigned seats. They were in the very back row, the cheapest and worst spots in the entire chamber. The message was clear without anyone saying it. Humans were not important here. Lisa opened her briefcase and pulled out her speech. She had worked on it for months. Every word was chosen carefully to show why humans deserved to join the Galactic Council. Her hands were trembling as she read it one more time. "Are you ready for this?" Jake whispered to her. "I have to be," Lisa whispered back. "This is our only chance." Around them, the chamber filled with representatives from 12 different alien species. Each one looked down at the humans with curious or dismissive eyes. Jake recognized most of them from the briefing files. The tall, blue-skinned Zentari sat in their crystal chairs. The insect-like Vexhi clicked their mandibles as they talked. The rock-like Granitians moved slowly to their stone seats. In the center of the chamber stood the speaking platform. Above it floated a shimmering translation device that would turn any language into something every species could understand. Jake had never seen technology like it. Earth's best computers could not come close to matching what this single device could do. The session began when a deep chime echoed through the chamber. All conversation stopped. The Zelthran ambassador rose from his seat. His body was made of living crystal that caught and reflected the chamber's lights. When he spoke, his voice sounded like music and thunder at the same time. "We gather today to discuss the application of the species known as humans for membership in the Galactic Council," the Zelthran said. "We have reviewed their documents and studied their world. The question before us is simple. What can humans offer to our alliance?" Jake felt his stomach drop. The way the ambassador said, it made it sound like the answer was already decided. But Lisa stood up anyway. She walked down to the speaking platform on shaking legs. Every eye in the chamber followed her. "Honored members of the council," Lisa began, her voice amplified by the translation device. "Humans may be new to space, travel, but we have many strengths. We learn quickly. We adapt to new situations. We solve problems in creative ways. We have a strong desire to explore and discover new things." The Vexhi representative made a sound like angry buzzing. "These are not unique traits," she said. "Every species believes they are special. Show us proof." Lisa activated a holographic display. Images of Earth appeared above the platform. Cities, forests, oceans, and mountains. Then came pictures of human achievements. Art, music, literature, and science. She showed videos of humans working together during disasters, helping each other, never giving up, even when things looked hopeless. Humans have survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and natural disasters, Lisa continued. We have never stopped trying to make things better. We have never stopped reaching for the stars. A new voice spoke from the expensive seats near the front. It belonged to the Aquarian ambassador, a creature that looked like a giant jellyfish floating in a tank of blue water. "Your species has been in space for less than 100 years, she said. "Our civilizations have been traveling between stars for thousands of years. You have one small colony on your moon, and a few research stations. We have cities on hundreds of worlds. That is exactly why we need to learn from you, Lisa replied. We want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. We want to contribute to galactic peace and prosperity. The Grenetian's ambassador, a being that looked like a walking mountain, rumbled in his deep voice. Your military technology is primitive. Your ships are slow. Your weapons are weak. What would you do if the Council faced a real threat? Jake watched Lisa's face. She was trying to stay calm, but he could see the frustration building. Humans may not have the most advanced weapons, she said, but we have something else. We never give up. When things get difficult, we fight harder. When we are outnumbered, we find new ways to win. Laughter echoed through the chamber. Not friendly laughter, but the kind that made Jake's face burn with embarrassment. The Luxari representative, a being made of pure energy, spoke in a voice like crackling electricity. Fighting spirit is admirable in primitive species, it said. But this is the age of science and technology. Emotion and determination cannot stop plasma cannons or shield generators. More voices joined in. The Synthari, who looked like living machines, pointed out that human computers were centuries behind galactic standards. The Etherians, ghostly beings that barely seemed solid, said human minds were too simple to understand advanced concepts. One by one, each species found reasons why humans were not good enough. Lisa tried to answer each criticism, but it was like fighting a tide. For every point she made, 2 more problems were brought up. Her voice started to crack with emotion. Jake wanted to help her, but he knew it would only make things worse. Finally, the moment came that Jake had been dreading. The Zelthran ambassador called for the vote. All those in favor of granting humans membership in the Galactic Council? Silence filled the chamber. Not a single hand, claw, tentacle, or energy field rose in support. All those against? 11 different shapes rose into the air. The vote was clear and brutal. Any abstentions? One small, furry hand rose from the back corner. It belonged to the Korthek representative, a species that had only joined the Council 50 years ago. The youngest and weakest members of the Alliance. The Zelthran ambassador's crystal body flashed with official colors. The vote is complete. 11 against, 0 in favor, 1 abstention. The human application for Council membership is denied. Lisa stood frozen on the platform. Jake could see her shoulders shaking. He wanted to run down and help her, but his legs felt like lead. Around them, the alien representatives were already starting to leave. The decision was made. Humans were not wanted. As they walked back toward the chamber doors, Jake heard fragments of conversation in the corridors. The translation device was still working, turning alien words into English. The word that came up most often was useless. Dr. Park's research was called childish nonsense. Human military capabilities were described as Stone Age thinking. With metal toys, an Etherian drifted past them, speaking to a Zentari. I almost feel sorry for them, it said. They seemed so eager to belong. But really, what could they possibly contribute? They cannot even agree among themselves on their own world. Jake felt his hands ball into fists. Lisa grabbed his arm and shook her head. Fighting would only prove their point about humans being primitive and violent. At the spaceport, as they waited for their transport back to Earth, Lisa finally spoke. We failed, she said quietly. No, Jake replied, watching the alien ships launch into the star-filled sky. They failed. They just do not know it yet. Neither of them could have imagined that within 3 years, those same proud alien civilizations would be begging humans for help. The species they had just called useless would become their only hope for survival. But that was still in the future. For now, humanity was alone among the stars, rejected and dismissed. The journey home felt longer than ever. 3 years had passed since the humiliating rejection at the Galactic Council. Earth had turned inward, focusing on building their own space colonies and improving their technology. The sting of being called useless still hurt, but humanity had decided to prove their worth through actions rather than words. Captain Ryan Blake stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel Hughes Phoenix, watching the stars through the main view screen. His ship was one of the newest in the human fleet, equipped with experimental engines and advanced sensors. It was not as impressive as alien technology, but it was theirs, built with human hands and human ingenuity. Captain, we are approaching. The target system, announced Navigation Officer Tom Wright from his console. Long-range scans show 3 planets, 2 gas giants, and an asteroid belt. Nothing unusual so far. Ryan nodded. The Phoenix was conducting routine exploration missions in the Outer Rim territories, far from the busy trade routes where alien ships traveled. Humanity had been effectively shut out of galactic commerce, so they explored the empty spaces that no one else wanted. Chief Engineer Maria Santos looked up from her engineering station. The new engine modifications are working perfectly, Captain. We are running at 95% efficiency. I think we can push it even higher. Good work, Maria, Ryan said. Keep monitoring the systems. I want to know if anything changes. Doctor Stephen Hughes, the ship's science officer, was studying his readings with a puzzled expression. He was a tall, thin man with gray hair and glasses that he constantly adjusted when he was thinking hard. Captain, I am picking up some strange energy signatures from the outer edge of the system. They do not match anything in our database. Ryan walked over to Stephen's station. Could it be natural phenomena? Maybe solar flares or magnetic anomalies? No, sir, Stephen replied, his voice growing more concerned. These readings are too organized, too regular. They look artificial, but the energy output is massive, much bigger than anything we have ever seen. Tom Wright suddenly straightened in his chair. Captain, I am detecting multiple objects on the edge of sensor range. They are big, and they are moving this way. Put it on the main screen, Ryan ordered. The view screen flickered and showed the dark space at the edge of the system. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Then slowly shapes began to emerge from the darkness. They were ships, but unlike any ships that Ryan had ever seen. They were long and sleek, with smooth black surfaces that seemed to absorb light. There were dozens of them, moving in perfect formation. My God, whispered Maria from her station. Look at the size of those things. The largest one must be 20 kilometers long. Stephen was frantically working at his console, trying to analyze the alien vessels. Captain, the energy readings are off the charts. These ships are powered by something completely unknown to us. And there is something else. They are scanning the planets in this system with some kind of focused beam. Are they council ships? Ryan asked. Maybe we wandered into claimed territory by mistake. No, sir, Stephen replied, shaking his head. I have studied all known council ship designs. These are completely different. The technology appears to be far more advanced than anything the council has. Tom Wright's voice was tense as he reported from his station. Captain, the alien ships have finished scanning the 3rd planet. They are moving toward it now. On the screen, they watched as the mysterious vessels approached the planet. It was a beautiful world, covered in blue oceans and green continents. Scans had shown it was rich with plant and animal life, though no intelligent species lived there. What happened next made everyone on the bridge fall silent with horror. The alien ships opened fire on the planet with weapons that turned the surface into molten rock within minutes. But they were not just destroying the world. They were doing something much worse. Massive machines extended from the ships and began tearing apart the planet's crust, harvesting everything organic and mineral. They are strip mining the entire planet, Stephen said in a horrified whisper. They are consuming everything. The plants, the animals, even the atmosphere. Ryan watched in shock as the beautiful world was systematically torn apart and fed into the alien machines. Within hours, what had once been a living planet was reduced to a lifeless rock. The alien ships then moved on to the next world in the system. We need to get out of here, Ryan said. Tom, set course for the nearest human colony. Maximum speed. Aye, sir, Tom replied, his hands shaking as he entered the coordinates dot as the Phoenix raced away from the dying system. Stephen continued to analyze the data they had collected. Captain, based on their current heading and speed, these ships are moving toward human space. If they continue on this course, they will reach our outer colonies within weeks. Ryan felt ice in his stomach. How many ships are there? At least 200 in this fleet alone, Stephen answered. And Captain, the energy signature suggests there may be more fleets out there. Many more. The journey back to Earth took 3 days. Ryan sent urgent messages ahead, warning Earth Command about what they had discovered. By the time the Phoenix arrived at Earth, emergency meetings were already taking place in every major government building. Admiral Patricia Lewis, the head of Earth's small space navy, reviewed the Phoenix's sensor logs with growing alarm. She was a tough woman who had served in Earth's military for 30 years, but Ryan could see fear in her eyes as she studied the data. Dr. Hughes, what is your assessment of these aliens' intentions? She asked. Stephen adjusted his glasses nervously. Based on what we observed, Admiral, they appear to be some kind of machine intelligence focused on resource harvesting. They consume entire biospheres to fuel their expansion. They are not interested in communication or coexistence. They are a threat to all organic life. General Marcus Brown, the head of Earth's ground forces, leaned forward in his chair. What? About their military capabilities? Can we fight them? Our weapons barely registered on their hull scanners, Ryan reported. Their shields absorbed our most powerful sensor beams without any effect. A direct military confrontation would be suicide. President Kyle Johnson, who had been elected 2 years ago on a platform of human independence, rubbed his tired eyes. How long do we have? The first attacks on our outer colonies have already begun, Admiral Lewis replied grimly. Colony 7 went silent 6 hours ago. Colony 5 is reporting massive ships approaching their system. The room fell quiet as everyone absorbed this information. Humanity's small interstellar empire was already under attack, and they had no way to stop it. We need to warn the Galactic Council, President Johnson said finally. Whatever our differences, this threat affects everyone. Jake Morrison, who had been promoted to Special Envoy after the failed Council application, shook his head. Mr. President, with respect, they will not listen to us. We are the species they rejected as useless. Why would they believe our warnings about an alien threat? Because we have proof, President Johnson replied. Send them everything. Sensor logs, energy readings, tactical analysis. Make them understand that this is real. Jake prepared the transmission that afternoon. It contained detailed information about the alien harvester ships, their capabilities, their apparent goals, and their current location. He included a personal message explaining the urgency of the situation and humanity's willingness to share all intelligence about the threat. The response from the Galactic Council came back within hours. Jake read it aloud to the emergency cabinet. Meeting. The Galactic Council has reviewed the human claims regarding an alleged alien threat. We find insufficient evidence to support these assertions. Human paranoia and aggressive tendencies are well documented. We will not be manipulated by fear-mongering tactics designed to gain sympathy for failed council membership. The matter is closed. President Johnson stared at the message in disbelief. They think we made it up? The Zelthron ambassador included a personal note, Jake continued. He says human emotional instability makes us prone to imagining threats where none exist. He suggests we focus on developing our civilization before making wild claims about galactic dangers. As if summoned by their dismissal, an aide burst into the meeting room. Mr. President, we just lost contact with Colony 3. The last transmission showed massive alien ships entering their system. Outside the meeting room windows, Earth's night sky looked peaceful and calm. But everyone in that room knew that somewhere out in the darkness, an unstoppable force was moving toward them. The species that had been rejected as useless now faced extinction, while the mighty Galactic Council remained blind to the approaching storm. Within days, the first Harvester scouts would reach the edges of Council space. The aliens who had dismissed humanity's warnings would soon discover that some threats were very real, and by then, it might be too late for everyone. The first attack came without warning. The Netherian homeworld, with its beautiful crystal cities and floating gardens, was reduced to harvested minerals within 6 hours. The planet's 3 billion inhabitants had no time to escape. Their advanced shields and defensive satellites were swept away like leaves in a hurricane. Fleet Admiral Carol Davis watched the emergency reports flooding into her command center aboard the UES Defiance. Her ship was hidden in the asteroid belt of an uninhabited system, one of the last safe places for human vessels. Around her, officers worked frantically to coordinate the evacuation of the remaining human colonies. Admiral, we just received a distress signal from the Korthik homeworld, reported Lieutenant Dan Rogers, her tactical officer. They are under attack by the same ships that hit the Netherians. The Korthak defense fleet has been completely destroyed. Carol felt no satisfaction in being right about the threat. The Korthak were the only species that had abstained from voting against human membership in the Council. They were young and idealistic, much like humans had been before the rejection. Now they were paying the price for the Council's arrogance. Any word from the main Council fleets? Carol asked. The Centauri Navy is mobilizing their battle groups, Dan replied, reading from his console. The HFY War Prime has deployed their elite squadrons. They still believe this is some kind of minor border incident that can be solved with superior numbers. Carol shook her head. The Council species had not fought a real war in over 200 years. Their fleets were designed for patrols and ceremonies, not for facing an enemy that consumed entire worlds. They had grown soft and overconfident, believing their advanced technology made them invincible. Dr. Helen White entered the command center carrying a datapad filled with her latest research. She was one of Earth's leading experts on alien technology, and she had been studying the Harvester ships for weeks using long-range sensor data. Admiral, I have completed my analysis of the Harvester attack patterns, Helen said. The results are worse than we thought. How much worse? Carol asked. They are not just destroying civilizations, Helen explained. They are learning from them. Each attack is more efficient than the last. They study their enemy's tactics and adapt their own strategies accordingly. The Netherian defense lasted 6 hours. The Korthik defense lasted only 3. Carol studied the tactical displays showing Harvester fleet movements across the galaxy. Red dots marked conquered systems, and the pattern was terrifyingly clear. The machine intelligence was moving through Council space like a virus, consuming everything in its path. What about our own encounters? Carol asked. Have they adapted to human tactics? That is the interesting part, Helen replied. Our raids and evacuations have confused them. They seem to have trouble analyzing human behavior patterns. Every time they think they understand our strategy, we do something completely different. Before Carol could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Lieutenant Rogers shouted over the noise. Admiral, massive Harvester fleet detected approaching the Centauri core worlds. 2,000 ships and climbing. The main view screen activated, showing a live feed from a spy satellite near Centauri space. What they saw made everyone in the command center fall silent. The Harvester fleet was like nothing they had encountered before. The ships moved in perfect formation, their black hulls reflecting the light of distant stars. At the center of the fleet was a vessel so large it dwarfed entire moons. The Centauri Defense Force met them at the edge of their home system. It was an impressive sight. 500 of the galaxy's most advanced warships, their blue hulls gleaming, with energy shields and plasma weapons. The Centauri had ruled space for over 1,000 years. Their military technology was legendary. The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes. Carol watched in horror as the Centauri fleet was systematically torn apart. Their plasma cannons had no effect on Harvester armor. Their energy shields collapsed under the alien weapons. One by one, the proud Centauri ships were disabled and consumed by Harvester processing machines. "My God," whispered Dr. White. "They are not even slowing down." The Harvester fleet continued toward the Centauri homeworld. The planet's surface defenses opened fire with weapons that could crack moons. The alien ships absorbed the attacks and replied with focused beams that turned the planet's cities into molten slag. Within hours, the Centauri civilization was gone. A species that had dominated the galaxy for a millennium was reduced to raw materials for the Harvester machines. Lieutenant Rogers was monitoring communication channels from across Council space. "Admiral, we are receiving panic broadcasts from all surviving Council worlds. The HFY War Prime is calling for emergency evacuation of their core systems. The Etherian Council is requesting immediate assistance from anyone who can provide it." "Are they asking for human help?" Carol asked. "No, ma'am," Dan replied sadly. "They are still trying to handle this among themselves. Pride dies hard, even when extinction is staring them in the face." Captain Ben Taylor's voice crackled over the communication system from his raider ship, the UES Wildcard. "Admiral Davis, we just completed our attack on the Harvester processing station in the Sigma Draconis system. We managed to destroy their mineral refineries, but something strange happened." "Report, Captain," Carol said. "When we made our attack run, the Harvesters responded exactly as expected," Ben explained. "But when my wingman Jimmy Clark decided to ram his fighter into their command module instead of following the planned route, they hesitated. For about 2 seconds, their entire defense grid went offline." Dr. White looked up from her datapad with excitement. "Captain, can you describe exactly what your wingman did differently?" "Well, Doc, Jimmy was supposed to target their weapon arrays, but he saw an opening and went for their communication dish instead. Then, instead of pulling away, he just kept going straight at them. It was crazy, but it worked." Helen turned to Admiral Davis with growing excitement. "Admiral, I think Captain Taylor may have found something important. The Harvesters are designed to counter logical military strategies. They expect opponents to follow predictable patterns. When humans do something unexpected or seemingly irrational, it confuses their tactical computers." "Are you saying our unpredictability is an advantage?" Carol asked. "More than that," Helen replied. "I think it might be the key to beating them. Every advanced species in the galaxy fights the same way. They maximize their advantages, minimize their losses, and follow established military doctrine. The Harvesters have algorithms for all of that." Carol began to understand. "But humans do not always fight logically." "Exactly," Helen said. "When a human pilot decides to ram an enemy ship, or when a commander orders a hopeless charge, or when a crew refuses to surrender against impossible odds, the Harvesters cannot predict it. Their computers crash, trying to analyze behavior that makes no mathematical sense." The communication system activated again, this time with an emergency broadcast from the Galactic Council's emergency. Headquarters on Valdrus Prime. The voice belonged to the Zelthran ambassador, but his usual arrogance was gone. This is an emergency. Transmission to all surviving military forces, the Zelthran said. The harvester threat has exceeded all projections. We have lost contact with 47 worlds in the past week. All remaining Council fleets are ordered to fall back to Valdrus Prime for final defensive operations. Admiral Davis looked around her command center. They are finally admitting they need help. Should we respond, Admiral? Lieutenant Rogers. Ast. Corral thought about the humiliation 3 years ago, when humanity had been rejected as useless. She thought about the dismissive response to their warnings about the harvester threat. Then she thought about the billions of innocent beings who would die if the machines were not stopped. Open a channel to Valdrus Prime, she ordered. It is time for the species they called useless to save the galaxy. The response from the Council would come soon, and with it, humanity's chance to prove that sometimes the galaxy did not need the most advanced species. Sometimes it needed the most stubborn ones. The emergency council chambers on Valdrus Prime were a shadow of their former glory. Where once hundreds of proud alien representatives had gathered, now only 30 survivors from 7 species huddled together in fear. The great circular chamber felt empty and cold, its advanced technology useless against an enemy that consumed entire civilizations. Jake Morrison walked through the damaged corridors toward the meeting room. His human delegation now consisted of just himself and Dr. Rachel Green, Earth's leading expert on harvester technology. The irony was not lost on him. 3 years ago, humans had been rejected from these same halls. Now they were the ones offering salvation. Ambassador Var of the Corthic limped toward them on his injured leg. His fur was matted with dried blood, and his usually bright eyes were dim with exhaustion. His people had been among the first to fall, but he had escaped with a handful of survivors. Ambassador Morrison, Var said in his broken voice, I am glad you have come. We need your help desperately. Jake nodded grimly. We received your distress signals. How bad is the situation? Worse than our worst nightmares, Var replied. The harvesters have consumed 63 worlds in the past 10 days. Our combined fleets have been destroyed. We estimate less than 48 hours before they reach Valdrus Prime. Dr. Green was already studying her datapad, analyzing the latest intelligence reports. Ambassador Var, have any of the Council species attempted unconventional tactics against the harvesters? I do not understand, Var said, his translator struggling with the human concept. Tactics that do not follow standard military doctrine, Rachel explained. Surprise attacks, kamikaze runs, unpredictable maneuvers. No, Var shook his head. All attacks have followed proper strategic principles. Maximum firepower, coordinated formations, logical target priorities. That is how civilized species conduct warfare. Rachel and Jake exchanged meaningful looks. That was exactly the problem. They entered the emergency chamber where the surviving council members waited. The Zelthran ambassador sat at the center table, his crystal form dulled with fatigue. Beside him were representatives from the Vexhi, the Etherians, the Granitians, the Syntheri, the Aquarians, and the Luxari. All the great powers of the galaxy reduced to desperate refugees. The Zelthran ambassador rose slowly as Jake approached. Ambassador Morrison, he said, his musical voice now strained and hollow. We were wrong about your species. We admit this freely. Tell us what you need. Jake studied the faces around the table. These were the same beings who had called humans useless, primitive, and strategically irrelevant. Now they were begging for help from the species they had dismissed. We need complete command authority over all remaining military forces, Jake said without hesitation. No questions, no interference, no second-guessing our tactics. The Vex High representative's mandibles clicked with agitation. You ask us to give control of our fleets to a species that has never won a major space battle. That is exactly why you need to give us control, Rachel interjected. Your major space battles follow predictable patterns. The Harvesters have studied every engagement in galactic history. They know how you fight, how you think, how you plan your attacks. The Etherian ambassador, barely visible as a shimmering outline, spoke in a voice like wind through leaves. What makes human tactics different? We do not have tactics, Jake replied with a slight smile. We have desperation. When humans are cornered, we do not follow rules. We do whatever it takes to survive, even if it seems crazy or impossible. Dr. Green activated a holographic display showing recent human encounters with Harvester forces. In the past week, small human ships have achieved 17 successful strikes against Harvester vessels. Our success rate is over 90%. Compare that to Council fleet engagements, which have a success rate of 0%. The Grenetian's ambassador, his rocky face showing confusion, asked, "How is this possible? Your ships are inferior to ours in every measurable way." Because we measure different things, Rachel explained. You measure shield strength, weapon power, and defensive capabilities. We measure how willing our pilots are to fly straight into enemy fire if it means completing the mission. Jake activated another display showing the most recent human victory. Yesterday, Commander Linda Harris led 50 mining ships against a Harvester fleet of 3,000 vessels. According to every tactical computer in the galaxy, she should have been annihilated instantly. The recording showed the human ships approaching the massive Harvester formation. Instead of maintaining proper formation and engaging at maximum range, the human vessels scattered in all directions. Some flew directly toward the largest enemy ships. Others targeted seemingly unimportant components. A few simply rammed themselves into Harvester vessels at full speed. The Harvester tactical computers tried to analyze the attack pattern, Rachel continued, but there was no pattern. Commander Harris told her pilots to cause as much chaos as possible and see what happens. The Harvesters could not predict chaos. The result was visible on the recording. The Harvester formation collapsed into confusion as their command ships tried to process human behavior that made no logical sense. In the chaos, the human ships managed to destroy a critical command node, causing the entire enemy fleet to shut down temporarily. The Zelthran ambassador leaned forward, his crystal body reflecting the holographic light. You defeated 3,000 ships with 50 mining vessels? We did not defeat them, Jake corrected. We confused them long enough to hurt them. That is how humans fight. We do not try to win through superior firepower. We win by being too unpredictable to counter. The Aquarian representative floating in her water tank asked, "What do you propose?" Dr. Green pulled up tactical plans that she and Earth's military commanders had developed. We reorganize all remaining forces into mixed human-alien squadrons. Human commanders will lead each group, but they will have alien crews and ships. The aliens provide advanced technology and firepower. Humans provide tactical unpredictability. This is madness, the Synthery representative said, his mechanical voice expressing disbelief. You want our most advanced vessels to follow suicidal attack patterns. Not suicidal, Jake replied. Unpredictable. There is a difference. Suicide serves no purpose. Unpredictability serves victory. Captain Alex Foster's voice came through the communication system from the orbital defense platforms. Admiral Davis sends her regards from the Defiance. We have analyzed Harvester approach vectors. They will be here in 36 hours. If we are going to try this crazy human plan, we need to start now. The chamber fell silent as the council members considered the proposal. Everything they believed about proper warfare was being challenged by a species they had considered primitive. Finally, the Zelthern ambassador spoke for all of them. We have tried logical tactics. We have tried superior technology. We have tried coordinated strategies. All have failed. Perhaps it is time to try madness. Not madness, Jake corrected again. Humanity. Within hours, the strangest fleet in galactic history was assembling around Valdrus Prime. Sleek Centauri cruisers flew alongside battered human freighters. Elegant Etherian energy ships paired with converted human mining vessels. Advanced Vex-High battleships took orders from human captains who had never commanded anything larger than a patrol boat. Captain Nancy Clark, commanding a mixed squadron of human and alien ships, opened communication channels to her diverse crew. Attention all vessels. Forget everything you know about proper space combat. Today, we fight like humans. That means when the enemy expects us to retreat, we advance. When they expect us to be careful, we take risks. When they expect us to follow patterns, we make our own rules. The Harvester fleet approached Valdrus Prime like a dark wave of destruction. Their massive ships moved in perfect formation, confident in their ability to analyze and counter any defense. They had consumed dozens of civilizations using the same methodical approach, but they had never faced an enemy that considered unpredictability to be their greatest weapon. The battle for Valdrus Prime would prove that sometimes the galaxy did not need the most advanced tactics. Sometimes it needed the most human ones. The final battle began at dawn on Valdrus Prime. Admiral Carol Davis stood on the bridge of the UE's Retribution, watching as the largest Harvester fleet ever assembled approached the last stronghold of galactic civilization. 2 million enemy. Ships moved in perfect formation, their black holes blocking out the stars themselves. All ships report ready, Admiral, announced Captain Alex Foster from his position at the tactical station. Around Valdrus Prime, the strangest fleet in galactic history waited for orders. Human commanders led mixed squadrons of alien and human vessels. Advanced Centauri cruisers flew beside converted mining ships. Elegant Vex-High battleships took directions from human pilots who had learned to fly in asteroid fields. Dr. Lopez, what is the status of our technical assault teams? Carol asked. Dr. Jennifer Lopez looked up from her engineering console. All boarding parties are equipped and ready, Admiral. We have 50 teams of humans trained to use improvised weapons inside Harvester ships. They know their mission. Carol nodded. The technical assault was perhaps the most dangerous part of their plan. While the main fleet fought the Harvester ships in space, small teams of humans would board the enemy vessels and attack them from within. It was a tactic that no civilized species had ever attempted. It was also humanity's best chance of victory. Captain Clark, are your fighter squadrons in position? Carol asked over the communication system. Captain Nancy Clark's voice crackled back from her fighter wing command ship. Ready and waiting, Admiral. My pilots understand the plan. We target the parts that do not make sense to target. Carol smiled grimly. That was exactly what she wanted to hear. For weeks, human tacticians had studied Harvester ship designs, looking for weaknesses that enemy computers would not expect anyone to attack. They had found several. Admiral, the Harvester fleet is entering weapons range, reported Captain Foster. They are maintaining standard formation. No deviation from predicted patterns. Perfect, Carol replied. That means they still think they understand us. Captain Clark, begin your attack run. Nancy Clark's fighter wing streaked toward the massive Harvester formation. Instead of targeting weapons or engines, like any logical pilot would do, they aimed for the communication arrays and sensor dishes on the outer hull. The Harvester defense computers tried to predict their attack vectors, but the human pilots kept changing targets randomly. This is Eagle 7, reported one of Nancy's pilots. I am supposed to hit their main cannon, but I see a pretty antenna array. going for the antenna instead. The harvester ship's defensive systems tried to protect its main weapons while the human fighter ignored them completely and destroyed a seemingly unimportant communication dish. Across the battlefield, similar attacks created chaos in the harvester formation as their computers struggled to understand the human targeting priorities. Admiral, the harvester command ship is attempting to analyze our attack patterns, Dr. Lopez reported. Their central processor is running calculations on human tactical behavior. Excellent, Carol said. Let them try to figure us out. Captain Williams, begin boarding operations. Captain Rick Adams led the first boarding party toward the harvester mothership. The massive vessel was the size of a small moon, its hull bristling with weapons and defensive systems. Any sane military commander would have avoided it entirely. That was exactly why Rick was heading straight for it. Boarding Team Alpha, we are approaching the target, Rick announced over the communication channel. Remember, we are not trying to capture the ship. We are trying to break it. Rick's ship, a converted cargo hauler, slammed into the harvester mothership's docking bay at full speed. The impact would have killed anyone wearing normal protective gear, but humans had learned to build their equipment for survival, rather than comfort. We are inside, Rick reported as his team forced their way through the twisted metal. Beginning interior assault. The inside of the harvester ship was a maze of mechanical corridors and processing centers. Rick's team moved through it like vandals rather than soldiers, smashing everything they could find with improvised weapons. They used mining tools to tear apart computer panels, welding torches to melt through control cables, and explosive charges to destroy anything that looked important. This is boarding Team Alpha, Rick called out over the communication system. We found what looks like a main computer core. It is huge, and it is making lots of pretty lights. We are going to break it. The harvester mothership's AI tried to analyze the human intrusion and respond appropriately. Its computer models had data on millions of different military tactics, but none of them included enemy soldiers who attacked with mining equipment while singing ancient human war songs. Admiral, the harvester mothership is showing signs of system failure, Dr. Lopez reported with excitement. Their central processor appears to be overloading. Carol watched the tactical display as the massive enemy formation began to show gaps and confusion. The harvester ships were still more powerful than anything the Allied fleet could field, but their coordination was breaking down as their computers tried to process human behavior that made no mathematical sense. All ships begin Phase 2 assault, Carol ordered. Target their escape pods. This command shocked every alien crew member in the fleet. Captain Nancy Clark's voice came over the communication channel with confusion. Admiral, did you say target? Their escape pods? That makes no tactical sense. Exactly, Carol replied. Nancy, if you are going to run away, you are going to die trying. Make sure they know it. The Allied fleet began attacking the harvester ship's emergency systems rather than their weapons or engines. It was a tactic that violated every rule of civilized warfare, but it had a devastating psychological effect on the harvester AI. The enemy computers had been programmed to expect opponents who followed logical military doctrine. They could predict attacks on weapons, shields, and propulsion systems. But when the Allied fleet began systematically destroying escape pods and emergency equipment, the harvester AI faced a logical paradox. How do you retreat from an enemy that specifically targets your ability to retreat? Admiral, the harvester mothership's AI is showing critical errors, Dr. Lopez announced. It is trying to calculate a withdrawal strategy while simultaneously processing the fact that withdrawal will result in certain destruction. The contradiction was too much for the machine intelligence. The harvester mothership's central processor, faced with an unsolvable tactical problem, began to crash. Error cascades spread through the entire harvester network as ship after ship tried to process the same impossible situation. "All boarding teams, evacuate immediately," Carol ordered. "The mothership is going critical." Rick Adams and his team fought their way back to their insertion craft as the harvester vessel tore itself apart around them. Emergency lights flashed throughout the ship as automated systems failed one after another. The AI that had conquered dozens of civilizations was destroying itself trying to understand human military psychology. The explosion of the harvester mothership lit up the space around Valdrus Prime like a new star. As its central command network collapsed, the rest of the harvester fleet found themselves cut off from their coordinating intelligence. Without central guidance, the individual ships became easy targets for the Allied fleet. "Admiral, we are receiving surrender signals from remaining harvester vessels," Captain Foster reported with amazement. "They are requesting instructions for peaceful withdrawal." Corral looked around the bridge at her mixed crew of humans and aliens. "Tell them to leave our galaxy and never return. If we see them again, we will assume they want to play more games with unpredictable humans." The aftermath of the battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The surviving council members gathered in the rebuilt chambers on New Valdrus. But the seating arrangement had changed dramatically. The human delegation now occupied the positions of honor at the front of the chamber, while the former great powers sat in the back rows where humans had once been placed. President Kyle Johnson, now recognized as the Supreme Allied Commander, addressed the mixed assembly of humans and aliens. His voice carried the quiet authority of someone who had led his species through its darkest hour. "We did not want this war," Kyle said simply. "But when it came to us, we fought it the only way we knew how. Not with superior technology or advanced tactics, but with the simple refusal to give up when everything seemed hopeless." The new Galactic Alliance Charter was signed that day. Human signatures appeared first, followed by the surviving species in order of their contribution to the war effort. The Zelthran ambassador, his people reduced to a handful of survivors, signed last dot as he placed his crystal hand on the document. The Zelthran spoke words that would be remembered throughout galactic history. "We believed humans were useless," he said, his musical voice filled with humility. "We were wrong. The Council is on its knees because we failed to recognize that sometimes the galaxy does not need the most advanced species. Sometimes it needs the most stubborn." Jake Morrison, now Secretary General of the new Alliance, looked out at the mixed assembly of humans and aliens working together to rebuild civilization. Representatives from a dozen species sat side by side, planning colonies and trade routes and defense agreements.